Hey everybody, I just started making this video, then decided to cut it because I was 5 minutes in and hadn't even pulled the machine out of the box yet, so because I was going through the owner's manual. This is an Amazon Basics 2-pound nonstick bread maker. They call it a bread making machine, and I ordered the black model. You can get black or white. All of our appliances except for our stove are black, and the KitchenAid food processor is white. But I was like, yeah, I'm kind of leaning. If there's a black option, I'm gonna go with the black model. So I got that, and I just ordered this, not even knowing that Amazon made or had a bread machine. Now, something that I will say before we pull this out of the box is, do you really think that Amazon has a factory that builds their bread machines? No. Or their toasters, or their paper shredders, or their batteries, or their wall mounts for the TVs that they sell, and, the plethora of other items that they sell. Now, I can't speak for their kind of like supplies and necessities that you kind of use and throw out, not including batteries, but these appliances I can almost guarantee, because of the lack of people who are probably purchasing this, do they make their own? Now, from what it looked like in the video, or not the video, but on Amazon's photo of this, oh, this is kind of smaller than I had expected. This looks like a very upright machine. And I'm going to show you a comparison between this and the Sunbeam that we have. So far, this is a really cute looking little machine. Not large at all. So I'm hoping that this is more of an upright bread machine rather than a horizontal bread machine. And I'll show you what I mean. Scratch that. More of a vertical or a horizontal, and I can already tell you right now it can't be a horizontal type loaf. Sorry, that was our Ring doorbell. Because this thing is so compact. Like, this is my hand on top of it. So most bread machines, especially the higher end ones, they either make a vertical or horizontal loaf or a vertical loaf of bread. Our Sunbeam, as well as the Oasters, and I believe even the Hamilton Beach machines, they make like a cube of bread. So we're gonna pull this out and I'll kind of show you what I mean. So anyway, now we're back. This thing is so tiny. It's not really that tiny, but it is so much smaller than I had thought it was going to be. This definitely looks like a more vertical bread machine. You get all your little doodads in here. That's your cup, your puller, and your measuring spoon. So let's see. This one you might have to twist. Yep. So this makes more of a vertical shaped loaf of bread. And there was a spider web inside of it. I guess you can't really see it, but there was a spider web inside this thing. So this thing is so tiny. I am shocked. Not really in a bad way, though. I don't want to, like, give the wrong impression that I'm, like, super disappointed. This is just significantly smaller than my Sunbeam, and I'm going to show you the difference. So here is the Amazon Basics bread machine. You can see, like, how big it is. And this is the Sunbeam. It's pretty large. You can kind of see the size difference between these, and it's really evident when you look at it on the top. It's significantly smaller. My, have the times changed. So our Sunbeam had a 12 function. This is a 14 function. You have your menu button. The buttons feel relatively solid. Can't really complain about that. These buttons were a little bit more jiggly. And there was lots of stuff that I never used anything on this except for the basic or the express bake. This one also has an express bake, and it's kind of funny because technically this only had 11 settings since it counted the express bake and the two different sizes, the 1.5 and the 2 pound, as two separate settings. So the big question is, well, what's the difference in the loaf size? So here is the loaf pan for the Sunbeam. And here's the loaf pan for the Amazon Basics. So I can tell you right now, I have never had the Sunbeam unit, and you can see it's pretty scratched up. That is a new paddle, and I never cleaned it after I popped the pan out of it, or the loaf out of it, because I knew it's basically going to go in the trash now. So you can see the size difference between these. And I was hoping that this was more of a vertical. It is. It doesn't have as fat of a loaf, but because of that, this machine typically bakes a bread up to about here on the Sunbeam. So it's still a 2-pound loaf of bread. You're still getting 2 pounds of bread. However, bread is airy. Bread is really not that dense. It is dense, but it isn't, because it's really just bubbles of dough that has cooked, obviously. But what I mean is 2 pounds can be spread out and made into different shapes, and you can definitely get a larger 2-pound loaf of bread. I mean, how much does a loaf of bread weigh from the store? Those are huge. So we're definitely going to see. I will say that the quality is about the same, I would say. I'm hoping this one might have been made, the Sunbeam might have been made a little bit easier, or nicer, but you know what? We're going to give it a go. I'm not really upset that this is smaller, because that means that it will fit in so many different places compared to this giant mammoth. So I'm going to get the ingredients around, and we're going to start this thing out on just a simple, basic bread recipe. Okay, now that I'm back making a mess, I have the basic bread recipe in our loaf pan, and I kind of changed it up a little bit because it only wants a teaspoon of yeast, and apparently you use more regular yeast than instant, and I have the bread machine instant yeast. So the machine, or the recipe I made in the Sunbeam last week, wanted 2¼ teaspoons, or 1 packet. That's the equivalent of a packet. Well, I've got the jar, so I did 2¼ teaspoons. But this only wants 1 teaspoon. It doesn't even want half a package of yeast. So using this, technically I should be using less than just yeast. It could just be because of the people who make the machine. I know that sometimes when you buy stuff from another country, the instructions are not very, they're not grammatically correct, and they may not know that there's a difference between the machine yeast and whatnot, but whatever. So I just did 2 teaspoons instead of the 1 teaspoon like it told me to. Okay, we're having problems. A couple weird things about this already is the cord is up here on the side middle of the machine. Interesting. So we will plug this in. I'm expecting there will be a beep. Yep. And I like how it has a backlit screen. I do like that. So we're going to close our lid. It says Amazon Basics on it. Wipe it down a little. So you can scroll through the menu, and it'll give you all your different your presets. So we're back to 1. So 2 pound is 3 hours, which is, I think, 40 minutes less than the Sunbeam. We'll have to check that. But I'm also going to do light, and that should change the, oh, I guess it just changes the temperature. I don't know what cycle does. Start, stop, time. I'm assuming cycle and time is when you do the homemade, and you can kind of screw with it with your own settings and everything. So that's a nice feature. Now, before I hit the go button on this, some big comparison between this and the Sunbeam. Obviously, the size is 1. I like the backlit screen for when you're kind of screwing through things. Like if I were to do the color, you can see the screen pops back up. I also like that it automatically defaults to a 2 pound. Make sure that even though you're reading the recipe correctly, make sure that you are also, when it comes time, that you put it on the right setting as well. I think that people would very easily remember to, uh-oh, must have gotten something on my booklet already. People could very easily forget to change the settings, but they had the recipe correct. So just make sure, be aware of that. You have a little window in here, just like the Sunbeam, but as I stated, I'm hoping that since the ingredients are relatively the same, we're going to just hit the start button so it doesn't sit here. Interesting. So, because this has a slightly different pan size, I'm hoping, since basically the ingredients are relatively the same, bread should take the shape of the unit that it's baking in. So I'm very much hoping that the bread will bake vertically. Then I wouldn't be so concerned. This will run without the lid closed. But I just hope that it gets kind of taller. You can see that the top is dipped. So I'm hoping that the bread gets tall, because even if you look at the side of this pan, it's not very, it's the same height as my Sunbeam is. However, the Sunbeam has way more side to side. It's getting messy. It's got more side to side. So even though I like the shape of the bread here, I'm afraid that the bread will just be denser, or the loaf's just not going to be as big, if you get what I'm saying. So I'll definitely be able to tell when this is done cooking, of course. But I have had mixed results with breads in the past, using all different sorts of recipes, what comes with the machine, what doesn't. And we will see what happens. Ooh, this thing... Ooh, it sounds like it's struggling. It's not loud, which is great. But I'm really hoping that I'm not really disappointed with the shape of the bread. Because imagine, you know, that Sunbeam literally spit out a loaf of bread like it was shaped like a square. So the slices, really, you couldn't use for like sandwiches or anything. It was almost just bread that you could butter, and that was that. But this definitely made a ball of dough much quicker than the Sunbeam did already. And I'm really hoping that this thing is everything that I'm hoping that it is. And I will be posting a part 2, because I'm not going to start messing with video mumbo jumbo to try and combine the after results of this in this video. So I'll post this, and I'll post a part 2 of me cutting the bread and my thoughts. So thanks for watching, and drop some comments if you have any questions.